Hello there, everybody. How you doing? Okay, here today again with Erekose, covering the UK general elections. Obviously, because it all ties in with those of you who've been following along with me here on my channel, as I've been kind of taking an interest in learning and kind of getting informed about some of the issues over in the UK that are going on with Brexit, Scottish independence, and the upcoming elections. So today I thought we would take a look at the two main candidates. So to get a basic idea of what's going on, and that would be Boris Johnson, okay, who is the leader of basically the Conservative Party there in the UK. They're called the Tories. You have Jeremy Corbyn, who is the leader of the Labour Party. And they are the two main candidates right now. Now, from what I'm hearing, Jeremy Corbyn still needs a lot of, he needs to gain a lot more seats today. By the time you guys are seeing this, it would be today for the UK. So he would need to gain, in the ballots, he would need to gain more Labour MPs and get more seats. So he's a little bit behind the eight ball in that sense. So, but that's where it's at. So what I'm going to show you guys today is I'm going to show you Boris and Jeremy Corbyn debating, and I'm going to take the attitude that Boris is the incumbent. He is the current PM. So I'm going to be kind of a little bit critical of him in a sense, but then again, the media there in the UK is being just as critical because they're putting these things out. But anyways, besides that, basically though, you're going to get to hear both sides, both guys here talking about the main issues that are pertinent at the moment. And it's going to include a lot of things, a lot of talk about the NHS, a lot of talk about getting Brexit done. Boris will bring up the anti-Semitism thing in the Labour Party and throw it in Jeremy's face. Anytime Jeremy's making a point about Boris that Boris maybe finds uncomfortable or doesn't like, Boris actually uses the anti-Semitism thing to try to shift the focus. It's interesting to watch, really, honestly. Now, I will also add this video will include material about the third main party there, which is the SNP, and which the SNP is led by Nicola Sturgeon, and the part they play in the election, and also because they are. Well, it's because the SNP in Scotland are potentially going to be looking to get their independence, and they're looking to have another referendum to vote to have the Scottish people vote again for independence. But that will only happen because of Brexit, because Brexit is such a significant change to the government that is what triggers the referendum. So it's going to be interesting to see how these things unfold. Obviously, well, I'll talk a little bit about it as we go here. So let's watch the little first segment with Boris and Jeremy, and we'll come on back.
Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are going to do a deal, and they probably already have done a deal, with Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP to form a Corbyn-Sturgeon coalition. And the price of that deal, the price of Nicola Sturgeon's support, let's be in no doubt, she's made it absolutely clear, would be a second referendum on the union with Scotland.
There's not going to be a coalition between Labour and anybody else. There are no deals that have been done, and there will be no deals that are done.
Okay. Mr. Corbyn is asking the people for a mandate to conduct a new negotiation next year when we don't need one because we've already got a deal. I think what people need to understand is whether he believes in the deal that he is proposing to do. Does he actually want to do this deal? Because if he doesn't believe in it, or if, absurdly, he was then going to campaign against it in the forthcoming
Perhaps you'd like to put the question directly to Mr. Corbyn.
What is the point of Brussels offering him this deal? And I wonder whether Mr. Corbyn could now tell us, are you going to campaign for leave or remain?
We will, within 3 months, negotiate a credible leave option with the European Union, and within 6 months, put that to a referendum of the British people to decide between that option of leaving whilst protecting jobs and trade and the Good Friday Agreement with Europe, or remaining as full members of the European Union. That will be the choice put before the British people.
There are no circumstances whatever in which this government or any Conservative government will put the NHS on the table in any trade negotiation. Our NHS will never be for sale.
A document here of US-UK negotiations, summary of specific negotiating
Let's
objectives,
allow Mr.
full
Johnson.
market access for US products to our National Health Service. You're going to
Mr.
sell
Johnson,
our National
on that
Health
point.
Service out to the United States and Big Pharma.
Is Prince Andrew fit for purpose?
Before we discuss Prince Andrew, I think we should discuss the victims that are there because of what Epstein was doing. And I think there are very, very serious questions that must be answered, and nobody should be above the law, but the primary position ought to be the proper treatment of those people who are victims of the most appalling behaviour by apparently Epstein and many others.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Johnson.
I think all our sympathies should be obviously with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and the law must certainly take its course.
Of course. Thank you very much indeed, of course. And we know that we've heard from Prince Andrew this week, and we'll move on now to our next question.
What present would you leave under the Christmas tree for each other this year?
Leaving politics aside, gentlemen. OK, leaving politics aside, what gift would you leave for Mr. Johnson under the Christmas tree?
Well, I know Mr. Johnson likes a good read. So what I would probably leave under the tree for him would be A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and he can then understand how nasty Scrooge was.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I think what I would probably leave a copy of, since you want a literary effort, a copy of my brilliant Brexit deal, which allows us to
Non-political,
I will wait. Maybe by next year we will be able to see his own
non-political, Mr. Johnson. Non-political.
Well, I think, what I think, Mr. Corbyn, Mr. Corbyn shares my love of plants and trees. I think maybe
one of your little cardboard buses, maybe.
Some damson jam.
Lovely.
Some
damson
jam.
OK, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for that.
He doesn't even want my damson jam.
Thank you. A fascinating 50 minutes of debate.
All right, so this is what I want to point out when I see Boris Johnson's zeal for leaving the EU and everything. He acts like it's what everybody wants, right? And see, I think it's a lot more complicated than that. And here is basically my proof of that. This is the breakdown of how the nations voted here, okay? So right here, the United Kingdom, they voted 52% to leave, 48% to remain. Okay, so that was the overall vote of all four of these, countries. This is the overall. So it was 52% to leave, 48% to stay. That's not a very big margin. That's half the people. It's barely more than half. So in England, it was a little more. It was 53 to 47. Okay, but in Scotland, look, in Scotland, there was 62% that wanted to remain. 62 versus 38% wanting to leave. So this is the big issue. And I'm going to come back to this later when I'm talking about why Brexit is causing a lot of problems. Obviously, no matter what, Brexit is going to be a problem for the Scottish people because they didn't want it. You know what I mean? So, and then you got Wales there with 52.5 to 47.5, and then you got Northern Ireland with 56 to remain and 44% to leave. So, like Scotland, they wanted to remain in the EU. So this is basically what it comes down to, and because Boris Johnson knows that Scotland wanted to remain, he's been dismissive of them. He says a lot of things that you hear, like the video I did yesterday where you hear that one guy during the debates who's like asking the moderator, why is it important that the one person there that believes in Scottish independence, to give them a chance to talk about it, and the guy's asking, why is that important? You know, it's like it's just bizarre. It's bizarre, but this is what I just wanted to show. This is what I'm talking about, where, yeah, okay, fine, England wanted to, and Wales wanted to, Northern Ireland didn't have quite as, many people that wanted to remain as Scotland, but they still had, 56%, which is, significant, I guess, but it's still, we're still talking about down the middle. And this is why I can't understand why Boris Johnson keeps saying that Brexit is such a big deal. If everybody wanted it, he keeps talking about deadlocked parliament. Well, the parliament is there to represent the people. If your parliament's deadlocked, your people are deadlocked. I don't know. That's what occurs to me. So that's just what I'm going to point out. And like I said, this is significant that Scotland voted 62% to remain. That's, getting pretty darn close to 2/3 of the Scottish populace that wanted to remain in the EU, and that's a hell of a lot more than any of the other countries here. So that's and that becomes important when we talk about triggering the referendum for Scottish independence. Okay, moving on.
Right, he's been taken inside, into the freezer.
He's gone into the fridge.
There's a bunker.
It's
very
heroic work,
so
mate.
far, isn't it?
That was heroic work.
Okay, and that little incident there prompted this to happen, where we have Boris tweeted saying, "We have one more day. Make sure you have your voice heard. Vote to honor the promises of the past and for a brighter vision of the future. Vote Conservative tomorrow." To which Piers obviously says, "You couldn't even honor a promise to do an interview, fridge hider." So, it's comical. It's funny. It's, it is very odd that Boris was dodging them so much. Jeremy Corbyn went on with them. Nicola Sturgeon went on with Jeremy and Susanna. So anyway, it's just odd that he was so desperate to dodge them and like actually went and hid in a fridge to avoid them. Anyway, so that's that. Now we'll hear a little bit from Jeremy Corbyn about the fridge.
Our manifesto is the product of a lot of people's thoughts and work. It's a serious manifesto and it's fully funded, and we've put ourselves out there to be questioned on this. I take questions on our manifesto, John McDonnell does and everybody else. I don't have to go and hide in a fridge when somebody comes to us. So we're out there accepting the democratic scrutiny that is so important in an election campaign, and the other party's doing something else.
Okay, so as you can see, UK is having a bit of fun with Boris after running to hide in that freezer, fridge, whatever. And obviously Piers, who is, feeling a little slighted because he agreed to come on Good Morning Britain, and then he just kept avoiding it, and then he did that when Good Morning Britain came to him. So, anyways, it's funny, and the memes that are coming out, you saw one of them there with Boris holding the card, because if you guys saw the advert that he put out, that was like it was like a parody of Love Actually, but it was, the ad was called Conservative Actually, and so he's out there, he knocks on this door, and the woman and the man are on the couch, and the woman gets up and answers the door, and he says, he has a card and it says, "Say it's carol singers," and and he starts going through the cards, and anyway, it's funny. But so anyway, the memes have been coming out today with "Can I hide in your fridge" on the card and things like that. So anyways, it's you know, wasn't the best move for him. He probably should have just, you know, said, "Hey, yeah, hi guys," and seemed like, you know, jovial and like a leader that people would like. He went a different way and hid in the fridge. So, but that's his choice to make. Of course, you know, that's, you know, he's the guy on top of the mountain right now. He's the guy to beat. So, you know, he's obviously pretty confident, I guess. So we're going to see how things are going to play out today, and we'll know by tonight what's what. And it should be interesting, I think. So anyway, all right, moving into the next one. This is going to be the bit where it starts to get into the talking about austerity and those sort of things which have come in under the conservative governments of the last 10 years. And so they're basically, that this part's going to basically go into some of those things right now for you guys to see, because it is a big issue. It's been getting complained about a lot during this election from what I've been watching and seeing. So it is a big deal, because the austerity is really something that's only good for the, you know, upper echelon, or the upper, you know, the really, really wealthy. It doesn't really, it's basically like the death knell for, you know, simple, you know, lower class or even low income families and things like that. So austerity has not done well. It's fairly unpopular. As more and more I watch more and more news, it seems pretty most people seem to agree that the austerity has been bad, especially for the social programs like the NHS and those sort of things like that. So anyway, all right, moving into this clip is where we're going to start to see some of that.
Is essential.
For I am today cutting the main rate of corporation tax again.
This tax cut is going to cost about £7 billion. That's going to be paid for by cuts, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, there will be cuts. A record number of children from working families in the UK are living in poverty.
Now a record 151 billionaires in the country.
I'm an exuberant defender of the banks.
The Royal Bank of Scotland has announced another loss, £1.9 billion. The taxpayer rescued bank will still pay nearly £1 billion in bankers' bonuses.
Can you think of anybody who stuck up for the bankers as much as I did?
It's a bonus this year. I did alright. Only one Maserati.
The best hope of social mobility is an open and flexible labour market.
The billionaire boss of Sports Direct, one of Britain's richest men. Staff are on 0 hours contracts and too scared even to take sick leave for fear of losing their job.
Philip Green's family has taken about £1.5 billion in dividends.
So, Philip, people want to know why you're on holiday when they think that you're supposed to be sorting out the pension deficit.
Will you go away?
We're all in this together.
The typical user of food bank is not someone that's languishing in poverty, it's someone who has a cash flow problem episodically.
Sometimes we don't have lunch. Mum always says my money doesn't grow on trees.
But there isn't a magic money tree that we can shake that suddenly provides for everything that people want.
$21 trillion is being held around the world in what are known as offshore accounts or tax havens.
We try not to eat a lot in one day, even though most of us are really hungry.
How much is a loaf of bread?
It depends what's. I can tell you the price of a bottle of champagne.
We'll give you the lowest rate of corporation tax in the G20.
Starbucks has joined the growing roll call of big high street names reportedly paying virtually no tax in the UK.
Apple has been paying 0.005% on their effective corporate tax rate.
How can cutting fire stations, cutting fire engines, cutting firefighters' posts not be a reduction in fire costs?
By continuing to reduce deaths from fire and continuing to reduce the incidence of fire. It's not about.
You lied to the people of London in your election.
Get stuck.
Enough is enough. I've got friends in that tower. Because of people saving money, people are dying.
Just up the road, many houses are worth tens of millions of dollars. Hundreds are empty, bought as a tax dodge.
Some 120,000 children are without a permanent home.
To build 200,000 new starter homes. How many did you build?
I don't have the exact numbers for you.
Well, it's easy to remember. It's 0.
Everywhere I go, they tell me that I've been homeless for this long and I've managed to keep myself alive this long. So many.
Governments always do is look after the very richest within our society. They've done very, very well in the years of austerity, while it's communities all over the country that have paid for it with closed libraries, closed swimming pools, out-of-reach pricing on sports facilities, lack of housing, increased stress, increased mental health stress. We have to redress the imbalances within our society.
And I think that to attack capitalism, as Mr Corbyn and Mr McDonnell do, is absolutely senseless. We're a government that understands that if you're going to have a dynamic market economy, you cannot clobber them. You cannot clobber companies with the highest taxes in Europe, which is what Mr Corbyn and the Labour Party would do. It would be entirely wrong for this country. His unwillingness to take a stand, to stand up for Jewish people in the Labour Party, his unwillingness to protect them, to put an arm around them, is it, in my view, a failure of leadership?
Okay, a failure of leadership is when you use racist remarks to describe people in different countries or in our society. I will never do that, and my party will never do that. We cannot go on forever saying we represent the 48 or the 52. I want to lead a government that represents the whole country and the whole community. So we will, within 3 months, negotiate a leave agreement with the European Union that will protect trade and jobs and the peace process in Northern Ireland.
See, everybody on the Labour front bench is campaigning to remain, apart from Mr Corbyn, who is neutral on the matter. Who is going to secure this deal? How can you get a deal, a new deal from Brussels for Brexit, if you don't actually believe in it?
President Trump has said many times people pay too little for US medicines around the world. That's the kind of agenda the Prime Minister wants to get involved with. That's the kind of deal they're trying to make with the USA.
This is pure Bermuda Triangle stuff. We've heard it time and time again from the Labour Party during this election campaign. We'll be hearing about Little Green Men next. I believe very passionately in I use the expression, I love it. It's one of the most incredible things about this country. It is admired around the world. The central idea that if any of us get sick, all of us take care of them. It's a fantastic thing. Now, we believe in an NHS free at the point of use, and under no circumstances will we sell it off to anybody.
We can tackle the climate emergency, end child poverty, and properly fund our National Health Service. A vote for Labour is a vote for hope, for real change, and for a country that works for the many, not just the few.
We can choose another hung parliament under Mr Corbyn and Nicola Sturgeon with 2 chaotic referendums, or else we can get Brexit done, get out of neutral, and get a parliament that works for you and on your priorities.
Okay, so there are the 2 main candidates. That's Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn. And now we're going to move into talking about the third party, which is the SNP, and that's where it includes Scotland. Right? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and play right now a clip of Nicola Sturgeon talking about what she wants for the UK and for Scotland here, and then we'll come on right back.
I'm SNP because I want Scotland to have the full powers of independence to build a fairer, more open and inclusive society. And I'm asking you to vote SNP tomorrow, because the next step on that journey to a better country is locking Boris Johnson's Tories out of office. So tomorrow, vote SNP to keep the Tories out, to escape the Brexit mess, and to put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands.
Okay, so that was Nicola Sturgeon, leader of the SNP, basically laying out what her hopes are for Scotland and for Westminster and that sort of thing. And what we're going to get into now is something I started to talk about a little bit last night. And it was something that we saw Nicola talking about in the video last night. And it's the WASPy women. These are the women who have had their pension they've been jerked around. What it actually is these women are generally all born in the 1950s. And they kind of grew up in the world where, things got done manually before all the Dysons and the various machines that help us to clean and do everything. They actually were manual labor. They did it with scrub brushes and whatever. So they did real hard physical labor, held down jobs and everything. And the whole idea was they had to work full time. They couldn't do part time and help, to be able to raise the kids and work. They had to be full-time employees. So there's a fair amount of these women that held down a full-time job and everything and planned with their husbands that they would retire at age 60. And the fact is that what happened is that they ended up moving the bar. So Parliament ended up passing this act or bill or something that ended up moving the age for the pension for these women from 60 to 65, which is the same as men. But they didn't tell anybody. They didn't tell these women that they had moved the bar. So these women weren't preparing for it and nothing, right? Then I think, what they say, in 2011, I believe they moved it again to where they made both ages to 66 now. So you have to be 66 before you can collect a pension. And these women are now in a situation where they have to try to figure out how to deal with 6 years that they didn't originally plan for to be without income. So that's kind of what it is. So I'm gonna let you hear it explained right now, and then we'll come on back.
Ladies born in the 1950s lived very different lives from ladies of today. We were brought up and expected to wash, cook, clean, iron, sew and look after the children. We were actively encouraged to pay a small stamp. We weren't allowed to join a company pension scheme until 1976, and even then you weren't allowed to join that scheme if you were a part-time worker. We worked in the belief that we would receive our state pension when we were 60 and planned our lives accordingly, along with our husbands. In 1995, the government increased the state pension age for women to make them equal to men to 65. But the problem is they didn't tell anybody. And women having already planned with their husbands to retire at 60 were completely unaware of this. Then in 2011, the government moved the goalposts again and increased the state pension age to 66. Only at this point did the government tell women they would not receive their pension at 60. So they had no time whatsoever to plan. So age 58, we were given 2 years notice to prepare for another 6 years. Many ladies were looking after their elderly parents, they're looking after children while their children go to school. They have physical disabilities because women always did hard manual work because you fit in with the children. So it was cleaning work, it was factory work, it was hard physical work. We also didn't have the nice gadgets that are around today. Everything was done with a scrubbing brush. You scrubbed the floors, you used a mangle, you humped stuff from the twin tub, and everything was very physical. So women are now being sent for job seekers allowance, and who is going to employ you? That will be no one. The government, we would like them to revisit this because women are suffering terrible financial difficulties. We need them to revisit it, admit they have made a mistake, admit that ladies were not informed, and do something about it in respect of a fair transitional arrangement till the age of 66.
Just finally, if women are in this position and need help, how do they contact you?
They can contact WASPI Newcastle. We are on Tees. We have a Facebook page, or the main WASPI site is waspi.co.uk. We'd be very pleased to meet you.
Okay, so those were the women that Nicola was talking about last night in the video in the clip in the video that I put up last night. It's an unfortunate situation there. That's really tragic. And what Nicola is saying is that type of thing would not happen in Scotland, and it's another reason why she feels that Scotland needs to take the reins, that they need to take control of their own destiny, kind of thing. So, all right, now we're gonna move into a clip where, in this time like this, when obviously there's disagreements, there's, the Scottish people are not really on board with Brexit. They don't want to be pulled out of the EU. They don't really want to be out of the UK either. So it's going to be interesting to see how the chips fall in all of this. But I'll tell you what, I get a feeling I know exactly what's going to happen when I watch a bunch of clips like you're going to see right here.
Let me put it this way. Would you be gracious enough to accept that the Scottish Government is committing some of its own budget in this area?
It is committing some, and I welcome, in the same way that lots of local authorities do, and I welcome all money that's put into broadband connectivity.
Okay. You view the Scottish Government as a local authority? Or?
I said no. I'll say it again. I welcome that money in the same way that local authorities, other broadband delivery authorities, the Welsh Government, for instance, also puts extra money in.
Okay.
Immigration is a reserved matter, and we're not going to grant the ability to the Scottish Government that I might not also be granting to Lincolnshire County Council.
That a pound spent in Croydon is far more of value to the country from strict utilitarian calculus than a pound spent in Strathclyde.
And it was the home of Oliver Cromwell, who defeated the Scots at Dunbar, incorporated Scotland into his protectorate, and transported the Scots as slaves to the colonies. Now, there's an answer to the West Lothian question.
Can I ask the honourable gentleman what work is being done to make sure that this place is more accessible, particularly for some of our colleagues who have a disability?
Here, here.
I'm sorry, it must be something to do with my Antipodean background. Could you please repeat the question, because I didn't follow it?
Well, very popular today. I'm saying that a number of parliamentary colleagues who have disabilities do find it quite difficult getting around certain parts of the state. Given that we're doing this refurbishment work, what can be done to make sure that those with a disability are able to move around more freely and the place is accessible?
I'm really sorry. Please, could you do it very slowly in Antipodean English? Thank you.
Just give any old answer. I think the answer might be helped if you can reply in writing when you're read.
Scotland is not a partner of the United Kingdom. Scotland is part of the United Kingdom.
Yes, but for how long, I wonder. You know, and those are some instances. I've seen other things, you know, walkouts. I've posted other videos where, like, we see a bunch of Conservative MPs getting up and walking out when a member of the SNP got up to speak and that sort of stuff. I mean, it's understandable that the Scots are going to move towards wanting their independence, because they certainly aren't going to. I mean, there's certainly no reason for them to feel like they're being taken seriously in Westminster. I mean, it's just there's absolutely no reason to believe that that's happening. And as long as that's the case, I mean, that's just going to fuel the conversation, the desire for independence in Scotland. And it looks like the Scottish Parliament is doing a pretty darn good job. And I think if they continue to do a good job, if you know, Westminster continues to go on with business as usual, I think Scottish independence may be unavoidable. It may not, you know. I know it's going to be a conflicted decision, but, like, I'm just saying, if things go on the way they are right now, I gotta say that eventually things are going to become just untenable, unworkable, and that's a shame. It's a shame, you know. Maybe Mark, my buddy Mark, who I talked to the other night, you know, for those of you who may have seen it, maybe he's right. And maybe the answer was to stay in the EU and work on changing the EU instead of, you know, trying to pull out of it. You know, I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma, though. So, all right, let's move into the last clip here about Election Day tomorrow, and we'll see you one more time.
Hi, so the big day is nearly here. Tomorrow the polls open at 7 in the morning and they're open till 10 at night. This is your chance to vote out Boris Johnson, to escape Brexit, and to give people in Scotland the right to choose their own future. But don't leave it to chance. Remember to check where your polling station is, make a plan about when you are going to go and cast your vote, tell your friends and family, and do it tomorrow. And remember, you don't need your polling card, just go along and vote SNP.